Hello, today we're going to open one of the darkest chapters in German criminal history. A case so chilling that just mentioning the killer's name sends shivers down the spine. Joachim Kroll, the Butcher of the Ruhr. Joachim Kroll, this name haunted Germany for more than 2 decades. From 1955 to 1976, he hid in the shadows, spreading fear through a string of brutal murders. It wasn't until 1976, thanks to a stroke of luck during a police operation, that this predator in human form was finally caught. Kroll confessed to all of his horrific crimes over 21 years, describing in disturbing detail how he killed, and in some cases even consumed, parts of his victims, most of whom were young women. His explanation for these acts, almost unbelievable. He claimed he did it to save money. He said that in post-war Germany, prices skyrocketed and meat was too expensive. It was an excuse that sounded both absurd and terrifying. This case shocked the nation, becoming one of the most infamous criminal cases in German history. So what turned Joachim Kroll into such a monster? Let's turn back the clock and revisit the childhood of this twisted killer to look for answers. Joachim Kroll was born on April 17, 1933 in Hindenburg, Germany, into a poor working-class family. That same year, Adolf Hitler came to power, ushering in a dark era in Germany. Fascism rose, and militaristic authoritarian ideologies spread across society, plunging the country into turmoil. Kroll's childhood unfolded against this backdrop of political and social upheaval. His father was a coal miner, the sole breadwinner of the family. His mother stayed at home, caring for 9 children, with Kroll being the 6th. In such a large and impoverished family, Kroll lacked not only material necessities, but also affection from his parents. From a young age, he never truly experienced the warmth of a loving home. When Kroll was 6, World War II broke out, shattering what little stability the family had. His father was drafted into the military and never returned. Some said he was taken as a prisoner of war by the Soviet army. Others believed he had died in battle. Whatever the truth, the family lost its only source of income. His mother had to carry the burden of raising 9 children alone. She moved the family to the state of Nordrhein-Westfalen in western Germany. At that time, the country was divided into zones controlled by the Allied forces. The economy was in ruins, millions were left homeless, and poverty was rampant. Like most German families after the war, the Krolls lived in hardship, instability, and displacement. With 10 mouths to feed, the family survived only on the meager wages his mother earned from odd jobs. In this environment of deprivation, Kroll's childhood was marked by constant struggle and misfortune. Long-term malnutrition left him frail and often sick. His mental development lagged behind his peers, making him a target for bullying at school, and his academic performance suffered greatly. Notably, from an early age, Kroll displayed troubling behavior. He often wet the bed and engaged in cruelty toward animals. According to research in criminal psychology, bedwetting, animal cruelty, and fire setting are the 3 hallmark signs of the McDonald triad, also known as the McDonald's triad. These behaviors often appear in childhood and are considered early indicators of a potential tendency toward violence. These actions seem to foreshadow, at least in part, the criminal path his life would take. Later, at the age of 15, after repeating grades multiple times, Kroll was forced to drop out of school. He began doing all sorts of odd jobs, from farm work to factory labor. During his time working on a farm, Kroll frequently witnessed the slaughtering of animals. For most people, this was nothing unusual, but for Kroll, these scenes awakened a strange sense of arousal. He later admitted that when he saw a pig being slaughtered, he felt a surge of sexual desire. He derived satisfaction from these bloody scenes. As an adult, Kroll tried to build a normal romantic relationship with a woman, but it quickly fell apart. Kroll later confessed that he often felt awkward and insecure around his girlfriend, especially in sexual matters. He felt extremely uncomfortable and seemed unable to have a normal physical response during intercourse. As a result, his girlfriend left him. This led Kroll to a chilling conclusion: he needed to seek out those who could not complain about his impotence. Kroll lived for a long time at the very bottom of society, unable to form normal social relationships with those around him. This isolated lifestyle gradually twisted his mind. In addition, post-war German society was bearing deep wounds, both moral and psychological. The devastation of war, the loss of loved ones, poverty, and instability pushed many into states of despair and isolation. Social order was highly unstable. Such an environment, combined with Kroll's inner psychological disorders and his alienation from society, may have been factors that together contributed to the extreme behaviors he would later display. In 1955, Kroll's mother passed away. That same year, at the age of 22, he committed his first murder. Many analysts believe that his mother's death may have been the trigger that caused the frustrations Kroll had long suppressed to collapse entirely. Her death not only deprived him of the sole authority figure and binding force in his family, but also severed his last emotional tie to society. All of this intensified his dark thoughts, leading him to reveal his true nature and begin killing to satisfy his twisted desires. On February 8, 1955, Kroll happened to meet Irmgard Strell, a 19-year-old girl from Saxony who had run away from home and was in the village of Wallstedt in the town of Aalen. The attractive blonde caught Kroll's attention, and he struck up a conversation, inviting her for a walk in a nearby forest. The girl, unsuspecting, agreed. They walked together along a path into the forest. However, after about 200 meters, Kroll suddenly tried to kiss Strell. This startled her. She struggled and loudly rebuked him. Feeling humiliated, Kroll flew into a rage. In his fury, he drew a sharp knife he carried and stabbed her 4 times in the neck until she lost consciousness. After confirming that Strell was dead, Kroll not only violated her but also brutally disemboweled the victim, just as he would with slaughtered animals. He then dumped her body in roadside bushes, covering it with leaves to conceal it. It wasn't until 5 days later that Strell's body was discovered by a passerby who alerted the police. When police arrived at the scene, they were confronted with an utterly gruesome sight. Strell's body bore numerous traces of blood and bodily fluids, leading them to speculate that multiple perpetrators might have been involved. This mistaken assumption caused the investigation to head in the wrong direction for a long time, making the police miss the crucial window to solve the case. While at the same time, Kroll, the man behind all these crimes, felt an unprecedented sense of satisfaction and pleasure, as if he had just opened a Pandora's box of evil. This feeling urged him to continue committing crimes. In the early 1960s, Kroll moved to Duisburg. At first, he worked as a toilet cleaner for a local company. Later, he switched to working for the Thyssen Corporation and rented an apartment at 24 Friesen Street, Lahr District, Duisburg. In the eyes of his colleagues, Kroll was an ordinary yet somewhat eccentric man. He spoke little and did not interact much with others. However, this strange man, whom no one suspected, would go on to commit 12 horrifying murders over the next 20 years in the area surrounding Duisburg. On June 16, 1959, Kroll encountered Clara Frieda Tesmer, 24, by the roadside near Rheinwiesen, Düsseldorf. He tried to strike up a conversation with Clara and attempted to put his arm around her, but she reacted strongly against it. Rejected, Kroll felt insulted. He began punching Clara hard in the head. Clara resisted fiercely. In the struggle, both of them fell into the roadside grass. During the violent fight, Kroll strangled Clara until she stopped breathing. After that, Kroll violated her body. The next day, Clara's body was discovered by 5 girls riding their bicycles along the roadside. There were multiple traces of bodily fluids on the corpse. This time, police also noticed that certain parts of the victim's body had been cut away, particularly the thigh and buttock areas, which bore distinct cut marks. Later, according to Kroll's confession, when he saw Clara's soft body, a twisted and horrifying idea flashed through his mind: cannibalism. And he actually did it. He wrapped the human flesh he had cut and brought it home to cook. The remaining pieces he stored in his refrigerator. He even experimented with different cooking methods to find the most delicious taste. From that moment on, Kroll seemed addicted to this disgusting act. He believed it both satisfied his animalistic urges and saved money. 2 birds with 1 stone. The success of his first two murders made Kroll increasingly bold. He began actively seeking his next targets, usually women walking alone, as they were easier to overpower. From 1959 to 1962, Kroll continued to use the same method to kill 4 more young women. On July 26, 1959, 16-year-old Manuela Knott became Kroll's next victim while she was in a park in the city of Essen. She was attacked and fatally strangled. Afterwards, he removed parts of her body and took them home. On April 23, 1962, 13-year-old Petra Giese was brutally killed by Kroll while she was playing alone in a wooded area of Dinslaken-Bruchhausen, Duisburg. Her body was later discovered in roadside bushes bearing numerous severe injuries. She had been strangled with a scarf and her red dress was found torn. There were signs indicating she had been subjected to disturbing acts. In this case, police mistakenly arrested Walter Quicker, a man with a prior criminal record. Quicker was sentenced to 12 years in prison in order to undergo psychiatric treatment. It was not until 6 years later that he was finally released. That same year, on June 4th, 12-year-old Monika Tafel from Walsum disappeared on her way to school. Her family immediately reported her missing to the police. After a week-long search on June 11th, police used a helicopter and found Monika's body in a forest near the town. Later, Kroll admitted that he had noticed Monika while she was walking to school. He dragged her into a barley field, assaulted her, and then strangled her. He also confessed to cutting flesh from her lower body and legs to take home. In this case, 34-year-old Walter Quicker, a man with a prior conviction for child abuse, was arrested by police after a witness claimed to have seen him walking with Monika. However, due to insufficient evidence, the police were forced to release him. Despite being set free, Quicker was still suspected and condemned by his neighbors. His wife divorced him. He was shunned by the community and local shops refused to serve him. Under overwhelming public pressure on October 5, 1962, Quicker took his own life by hanging himself in the forest. 3 months later, on September 3rd, 12-year-old Barbara Bruder was reported missing on her way to school in Burscheid. Kroll later admitted to killing the girl, but because Barbara's body was never found, he was never charged in connection with this case. A string of murders in Duisburg led to several innocent people being wrongfully accused and charged, while the real killer, Joachim Kroll, remained at large, living undetected and unsuspected by both the police and his neighbors. As time went on August 22, 1965, Kroll murdered Hermann Schmitz, the only known male victim in his killing spree. That evening, Kroll spotted Schmitz and his fiancée Maria Emde sharing an intimate moment inside a car parked in a secluded area. Pretending to need help, Kroll lured Schmitz out of the vehicle before stabbing him to death. He then attempted to assault Emde, but she managed to escape with her life. In a panic, Emde jumped into the driver's seat, drove straight at Kroll, and escaped. This was the only unsuccessful murder attempt in Kroll's long string of crimes. Although Emde had clearly seen Kroll's face, her description of the man with his completely ordinary appearance offered no useful clues to the police. Kroll continued his crimes, growing increasingly bold. Between 1966 and 1969, he escalated his pace, murdering 5 women using similar methods. Unlike many other serial killers, his victims varied greatly in age and appearance, ranging from a 5-year-old girl to a 60-year-old woman, showing no consistent victim profile. On June 13, 1966, 20-year-old Ursula Rohling was attacked in a park near Marl. After spending time with her boyfriend Adolf Schickel, she was walking home through the park when she caught Kroll's attention. He approached her, struck up a conversation, then used his right arm to strangle her, dragging her into the bushes where he ended her life. Rohling's body was discovered 2 days later, partially unclothed. Her legs spread apart, showing clear signs of assault. Although her boyfriend Adolf Schickel was suspected and interrogated for a long time, he was eventually released due to lack of evidence. Tragically unable to bear the weight of public suspicion, Adolf Schickel later took his own life. On December 22nd of the same year, 11-year-old Ilona Hark was found in a ditch in Essen. Kroll admitted that he had lured the girl onto a bus to the Wu-Batar area, where he took her into the woods and attacked her. Afterwards, he threw her into the ditch because he wanted to watch her drown. On June 22, 1967, 10-year-old Gabriele Pueter narrowly escaped death on a rural road in northern Bottrop. Kroll lured her into a grassy field under false pretenses. When Gabriele panicked and tried to run, he attacked her. Fortunately, at that moment, the shift change siren from a nearby coal mine sounded, and miners on their way home discovered the scene, intervened in time, and saved her life. Kroll was unable to carry out his plans. However, Gabriele's parents did not report the incident to the police at the time to avoid damaging their daughter's reputation. It was not until 9 years later, after Kroll was arrested, that they came forward to inform the authorities. On July 12, 1969, nearly 61-year-old Maria Hetgen was killed by Kroll in Huttenwagen. That day, Kroll took a train from Duisburg to Essen, then a bus to Baldeneysee in Verden, for a stroll where he encountered Maria. He tried to strike up a conversation, but she declined. Kroll then assaulted her in a secluded bush area and strangled her to death. On May 21st of the following year, 13-year-old Jutta Rahn was followed by Kroll on her way home from the train station. When she passed through a wooded area, he attacked her and ended her life by strangulation. On May 8, 1976, 10-year-old Karen Topfer from Voerda was brutally killed by Kroll on her way to school. Because Kroll's methods did not have any clear distinctive pattern, and the crime scenes were scattered across multiple towns around Duisburg, the police were unable to connect these 13 murders to the same perpetrator. Moreover, Kroll did not always engage in acts of cannibalism. He admitted that when he did, he only selected what he considered the best parts, claiming he preferred fresh, tender meat. Kroll had an ordinary appearance and rarely interacted with others, making it difficult for anyone to suspect him. According to neighbors and acquaintances, he was a quiet, shy man who kept to himself. At that time, Germany was in the midst of post-war reconstruction. Social order was still unstable, and crimes occurred frequently, making it impossible for the police to thoroughly investigate every case. Because of these circumstances, Kroll managed to evade capture for more than 20 years. Neither the police nor the public realized that a highly dangerous serial killer was living right in their community. Joachim Kroll's killing spree finally came to an end in 1976. In July that year, a disappearance shocked the city of Duisburg. 4-year-old Marion Ketter vanished while playing near her home. The police launched a large-scale search but found no immediate leads. The unexpected breakthrough came from Kroll's own apartment in the Lahr district of Duisburg. A few days after the disappearance, neighbor Franz Josef Stumpe noticed that the shared toilet in their building was clogged. Kroll told him not to use it because it was broken and he hadn't had time to fix it. Stumpe grew suspicious, and since he needed to use the restroom, he decided to check and fix it himself. To his horror, he discovered fragments that appeared to resemble human tissue in the toilet. Terrified, he immediately contacted the police. Upon receiving the report, officers quickly arrived at the scene and searched Kroll's apartment. At that moment, Kroll was cooking potato soup with steam rising from the pot. To their shock, the officers found a human hand inside. In the refrigerator, they also discovered frozen human remains that could not be identified. Kroll was immediately taken into custody. After his arrest, Kroll was surprisingly cooperative with investigators. He calmly recounted in detail the crimes he had committed over the past 20 years. He admitted to carrying out numerous killings from 1955 to 1976, targeting both women and children. During questioning, Kroll described how he lured his victims, usually women walking alone, by taking advantage of his plain appearance and unthreatening demeanor. He would pretend to ask for directions or request help, and once he had earned their trust, he would lead them to secluded areas and end their lives, often by strangling or stabbing. He also confessed to committing acts of cannibalism. Unlike some murderers who view such acts as ritualistic or symbolic, Kroll's motive was disturbingly pragmatic. When asked why, Kroll explained that he cut meat from his victims to cook and eat because meat was too expensive. At the time, Germany's economy was struggling with severe inflation, and the prices of essential goods had soared. People faced shortages of basic necessities, black market trade was rampant, and meat was especially costly. Kroll claimed that his actions were simply a way to save money. Police found substantial evidence in Kroll's apartment, including preserved remains that matched his statements. To verify his confession, investigators repeatedly took Kroll to various crime scenes, asking him to reenact his crimes in Duisburg and nearby areas. During these reenactments, Kroll demonstrated how he approached, attacked, and disposed of his victims, always with an unsettling calmness and without any sign of remorse. The cooperation and detailed statements given by Kroll provided police with undeniable evidence, forming the foundation for his prosecution. His trial took place in Duisburg, shocking the German public with the severity of his crimes. The case received widespread media coverage and drew significant public attention. Kroll faced charges including 8 counts of murder, 1 count of manslaughter, and several counts of assault. Some other cases lacked sufficient evidence to proceed. While he had confessed, the trial also needed to examine his mental state and how it might influence his sentencing. During the proceedings, Kroll's defense argued for leniency based on his mental condition, noting that he had an IQ of just 76, comparable to that of a young child, and often displayed childlike behavior. They claimed his limited understanding meant he could not be held fully responsible for his actions. Psychiatrists testified that Kroll was not only of below-average intelligence, but also exhibited sadistic tendencies linking his impulses to acts of violence. The defense insisted he should be placed in a psychiatric facility rather than prison, as his intellectual disability and mental disorders impaired his ability to fully grasp his actions and their consequences. The prosecution, however, argued that Kroll was fully aware of what he was doing. They highlighted his calculated methods, such as always carrying a knife and carefully selecting victims who were more vulnerable than him. They maintained that despite his low intelligence, he understood his actions were wrong and must be held fully accountable. Prosecutors demanded the maximum sentence. Outside the courthouse, citizens gathered, some even calling for the reinstatement of the death penalty, which had been abolished in Germany. After 151 days of hearings in April 1982, the Federal Court of Germany found Kroll guilty of 8 counts of murder and 1 count of manslaughter, sentencing him to life in prison, the highest penalty under German law at the time. The court rejected the defense's claim that he was not criminally responsible, concluding that despite his limitations, he understood his actions and could control them. Kroll spent the rest of his life in prison. According to prison records, he remained quiet and compliant, showing no strong emotions and seemingly accepting his fate. In 1991, he died of a heart attack behind bars, ending his life in crimes. The story of Joachim Kroll is not only a case study of a serial killer, but also a disturbing reflection on the darker sides of human nature and the impact of societal neglect. Growing up amid the devastation of World War II and the hardship of post-war Germany, Kroll was shaped by poverty, instability, and a lack of social and psychological support. From a lonely, neglected childhood to a troubled adult life, Kroll's resentment and isolation eventually manifested in his violent crimes against innocent victims. Although Kroll's IQ was only 76, the cruelty and emotional coldness he displayed in his crimes were deeply unsettling. His acts of violence and mistreatment of victims revealed a profoundly disturbed state of mind. Kroll's irrational explanation that he resorted to consuming parts of his victims because of financial hardship not only hinted at the lingering effects of post-World War II famine, but also exposed an extreme disregard for human life at the core of his being. The Kroll case remains a significant subject of study in criminology and psychology. The complexity of his mindset demonstrates that the influence of social conditions and personal experiences on criminal behavior cannot be ignored. His trial sparked widespread public debate about how the law should assess criminal responsibility in cases involving mental illness and how society should balance punishment with psychological considerations, especially for offenders like Kroll, who grew up in a fractured post-war world. How can we distinguish between a disturbed mind and a calculated crime? How do we tell the difference between a killer beyond redemption and someone deeply damaged by the forces of society and history? What do you think? Leave your thoughts in the comments below so we can discuss together. Always stay alert and keep yourself safe. That's all for today's video. See you again in the next one. Goodbye.